Welcome back to Revealing the Hidden, where we take a deeper look into Jewish living. So the last 2 days, we started what I guess I'll call a mini-series on prayer. We were doing background pieces. One was our hack of how to get your prayers answered faster, the power of a Tehillah Ratzon, davening for the entire Jewish people for all time. And then before that, the day before, we spoke about the notion that prayer is the hook, is the rope lassoing in a connection to God from every different aspect and angle of your life, always plugging into the mainframe, so to speak. But I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into something we referenced yesterday, and I want to pull it out more. The notion that the Derech Hashem, the Rav Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, describes, as we said, that every blessing in heaven is waiting in heaven and cannot come down without prayer. That every single blessing that you want to come down, prayer is the road that you're building so that the blessing can come from the Amazon, Walmart truck, you name it, Rami Levy truck, holding all the blessings, all the shefa, all the things you need to come down into this world. And everything that comes into the world comes from a prayer. I want to speak from a personal experience because I think that we don't always remember to elevate the things that we're doing and to bring God into those things. We spoke about roping Hashem in, roping Him into our life, elevating the life that we have. But sometimes on a practical level, this needs to be thought about more carefully. I'm going to illustrate through a story, and then I'm going to ask you to take it away with you. The story goes as follows. When I started my journey with NCSY as regional director, a new part of responsibilities had been added to my repertoire that I never really had experience with, which was fundraising. It was challenging. It was a really fascinating learning experience. I was getting the hang of it, knocking around a little bit, didn't really like it, and I was at a conference with some of my colleagues, and we're sitting in a shir, and they were talking about prayer. In the middle of that shir, one of the colleagues asked the following question. He said, "Rabbi, how do you move the world with prayer? You know, how do you get to those specific tefillahs that you know that you're moving the world with?" After the shir, I pulled him aside. Forget about the actual shir itself, the conversation. I said to him, "You got to tell me what you mean by that." That was obviously coming from somewhere. So my good friend, one of these colleagues, he said to me that he had a few times in his life. One time was when he was davening for someone who had been on a surgery bed and basically had been dead, or like should have been dead by all accounts. And he felt the power of his prayer that was so intense move the world, and there was a miracle, like really a complete miracle, and his family member was saved. Another story about a fundraising instance that he had been in, where he got a no from a donor to help him with a big campaign that he was planning on, and he was so excited, and it was going to enable him, empower him to have what's called another TJJ bus, a Jerusalem Journey bus, which is when we send public school kids to Eretz Yisrael. And you can't imagine how beautiful and how powerful it is for 50 public school kids to be experiencing Israel and touching the land of our forefathers and walking their roots and seeing the Kotel for the first time. And he was so excited about it, and he got a no on the ask, and he was so down about it. And at some point, he said to God, he afterwards, he said, "I can't believe I got so down. I cut you out, Hashem. How could I do that? It's not him that's going to decide, not the donor that's going to decide. It's you, Hashem, that's going to decide whether this is going to be a yes or a no, whether or not I'm going to get the money. And it doesn't have to come from him. You could do it in any way." He said within 15 seconds, he got an email from the guy's secretary, changing his mind and confirming the funds. And so he basically described this experience of moving the world, so to speak, with his prayers. And that's what he told me. And it really struck a chord with me. I took it down in my notes, and I was on an airplane on the way back for the conference, and I'm looking through my notes and I see this story. And it struck me as like, whoa, I've been in fundraising. I'm really not enjoying this so much. It's hard for me. The challenge, I'm trying to figure it out. It's definitely one of those things that's getting the better of me to an extent. And I said to God, I'm like, God, I can't believe I cut you out. I'm so sorry. Like the same way that he had said it. And I said, Bli neder, I will never cut you. I will try not to cut you out again. I'm going to bring you into this. And I said, I'm going to try to remember to bring you into fundraising. It had been a new thing, when it came to Kiruv, to outreach, to working with teens themselves, I remember many a time when I would actually pray for them. I think one time I brought like these papers, these notes that they had written, that I brought with me to Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah to Shul, and that was involved into the experience of my life. Was the thing that I'd been doing. But when it came to fundraising, I realized that, and not always, obviously, I'm far from perfect, but there were definitely experiences of prayer for the teens that I was working with. But when it came to the fundraising, which was a new part of my responsibilities, I didn't bring God in, looking at strategies, asking for advice and all these things, which of course you should do. But it's really God who's doing it. And so I said to Hashem, like I was describing on the airplane, Hashem, I cut you out, I'm so sorry. Please help me in my fundraising. I won't cut you out again. In the middle of the flight, I don't even know why my phone was on. I got a text message, not a WhatsApp, and this was years ago before that was an easy thing. I got a text message in the air from a donor that I had solicited about 6 months before that. I spoke to the donor. I asked him for a donation. He said to me a business deal was going to go through, and once it does, he was going to make a donation. And he said, reach out to me in a month. I saw him a lot, and a month goes by, I didn't hear from him, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it was, and I just figured maybe it fell through. I wasn't going to pressure him, make him feel bad, And 6 months later, right, not 1 month, 6 months later, he texts me while I'm in the air, and he says, I have a check for you, I'm going to bring it tonight. And I open my door and I get home, and he brings to me a check and hands it to me for a lot more than I was expecting. And he said, "This is the biggest check that I'm writing. Don't honestly, please don't share this with other people. I don't usually give this much. I want to support you. I believe in this, And he writes me a very, very sizable check for NCSY. And it was almost like the exact same function, the formula that my colleague had taught me, is what I learned in this experience, in this prayer. God, I can't believe I cut you out. What it was telling me was something that we know from the world of bitachon. In the beginning of Shar HaBitachon, the gates of faith, written by Rabbeinu Bechaya, he describes that when it comes to faith, if you cut God out, God's going to cut you out, so to speak. Meaning, not literally cut out. If you're not going to involve me in this part of my life, you want to turn to another place, lean into something else to make it work, so then, okay, I'll let that thing be the thing to let it work or not work. When you lean into God and say, God, I'm going to trust you and lean into you to take care of this because you're the only one who can take care of it, then guess what happens? Then it's his hand, and he takes care of you. And not only that, the faith itself produces that, a higher level of that, because you're leaning in and saying, Hashem, you're the one I'm leaning in, so he's going to catch you. And it reminds me and brings me back to this experience with this prayer. The experience of the prayer was a total experience of, God, I'm going to lean into you on this because you're the one who takes care of it, and I'm going to let go of the other thing. And so when it comes to this mini-series on understanding tefillah, letting go of everything else out there and leaning into God and letting him catch you is the message. Finish with a joke, I believe is Ronald Reagan's joke that he used to give. The atheist in the forest running away from a lion, and he falls off the side of a cliff and grabs onto a root of a tree, and he's hanging on for dear life. And even if he climbs up, there's a lion waiting for him at the top. And he looks up to the sky and says, God, if you're there, I'll do anything. And he hears this big booming voice, come back and say, anything? And he says, yes, anything. He says, okay, I want you to let go. What a deep message. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, just let go. You think it's the root that's holding you up? You think it's the business strategy? You think it's the doctor? Yes, you have your derech hatava, but just know you have to let go and let me catch you. And that was the message and the experience. And that, my friends, is one of the deepest transformative parts of prayer. It's letting go of everything else. And b'chol avcha, to let Hashem catch you. Have a good, uplifting Torah tefillah answered day.